so you're seeing that like there are people in this space that are doing cooler things than what the studios can do.
What's very sad about filmmaking is that the way society sees it, or everyone sees it, is like, oh, so you're a filmmaker, so you're a film director. Okay, so are you trying to win the Oscars?
But then I ended up getting, the second person that I talked to said yes, and I got to play a song on Broadway. Like that was the day that I was like, oh, I could really ask for anything.
Wow, like look how many people said no to me and I'm still alive. And sometimes you're happier at the end than you are before you were afraid of all these things.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Unbox Creativity. Your hosts are right here. Well, on this camera you can see Fernando and today we have someone really special that we met in a really crazy way. So I'm just gonna let her introduce herself to us. It was a crazy way for sure. And then we'll get back to how we met. Yeah, so, well, you can actually tell us, how did we meet?
Take it from here.
Introduce yourself, yeah?
Hey, I'm Meredith. We met in like last week at a parking lot in Lineage Coffee in Orlando. Yeah, basically, I don't know. Basically, I was in there editing and I became friends with these two guys who I think are in college or something. And it's just because I was a regular at this coffee shop and they were a regular at this coffee shop. And they're really interested in videography and photography and starting their own businesses and stuff. And they saw you guys walking by with gear. They were like, I think we're going to go meet him. And I was like, yeah, have fun. And they went to go meet him. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to know who these people are too. So I just kind of walked up and said, hi, what are you doing with all this equipment? Tell me about.
What we were doing.
Yeah.
And it was fun fact. We were just doing something
Really cool.
rare.
Really
We
different.
don't do that all days of the week, you know. And we were just happy to be approached and asked
Yeah.
to what we were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
Really.
Which is so funny because on the other side, I'm so worried that I'm going to be like annoying when I see people with equipment and I'm like, oh, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, you know what? And so to hear that, it's so sweet because it's like I should interrupt people more.
So and I think we overthink that stuff a little bit, right? We're always like, okay, like, am I interrupting you if I'm coming and talking to you? And I feel like it's easier than you think sometimes. I mean, look at what we started because you guys, well, the two guys first, but also you then came.
Shout out to
So
Elliot
now I'm
and
curious of those
David.
two guys. What happened to them? Where are they?
So here's the funny part. Well, listen, they're great, but her story was too much. We're like, okay, we need her first.
Well, also,
reach out to them. Thank you guys. Or whatever the name.
their names are Elliot and David.
Elliot and David. Shout out to Elliot and David. Thank you.
They are so funny. I saw them like yesterday in Lineage because they were meeting. Yeah, we both just go there all the time. And one of their friends came up and they all were like, drop a sub on her, like YouTube. Like they just are really trying to promote me. And I remember when I went up to meet you, Elliot was like, listen, you guys gotta. Like they're like my little marketing managers. It's really cute.
I love that.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is like, just for you guys to like get a little bit of like how that story went. We were filming, I was with Val and we had a green screen set up and we were filming for this guy who was like a very Tony Stark kind of entrepreneur. At this point, he's like a billionaire, honestly. And he has his company where he wants to give investment tips and like even like a course, an online course, answering all your questions. And he wants to do that through pretty much like making himself through AI, making himself into like an avatar is what he was saying.
So he wants to take his business to the metaverse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have a 24/7 consulting type of, you know.
It's pretty interesting.
So we were just.
Yeah, he basically wants to do what Tony Stark does at the end of the movie where like.
So how do you meet this guy?
No, so that was through the agency I work at. Yeah. So like through like and this guy just like happened to like want to do that at that moment and we were like, okay, let's just set up a green screen and do it like that. And it was just the right moment to do it through the agency and everything. But because he knows that we have like in-house capabilities for productions like that. So we just got together, got a really good sound guy that works with us that was actually on the podcast before, Marty.
And that place is literally I don't know, I'll say the biggest connection because that's where I met him.
Yeah.
Years ago.
At Lineage or the agency?
I think, yeah.
So
I gotta go to this coffee shop more often. What's going on?
It has an interesting energy.
Yeah.
In that building, because a lot of things that happen in
Yeah.
like people that we work with, and shout outs to Thank Integrated.
Yeah.
They support our careers a lot.
Yeah.
And then we get called for different things, whatever fits better, whatever need they have. So
Yeah.
that day was very, I'll say, very technical shoot.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Just get the light right and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and also rich guy wants to go in and out. Remember, he shows up and he wants to be done, and that's it. And you know, sometimes you need 2 takes, maybe 3 takes.
Yeah.
Not 2 takes.
It's like, how dare you ask for a second take?
I know. So I had to balance that out. And the funny thing is, one of the biggest commercials I've worked with, actually, with a guy in Brazil, very similar thing. Big investment group. He's the owner of the whole thing, CEO, millionaire guy. And we needed a lot of takes with that guy. And he's like, helicopter is coming to pick me up.
Yeah, I'm leaving in 5 minutes. You guys have.
You've got to be done like now. So then we walked out with all the gear, and you know, you guys approach us, you approach us later, and then you start telling us about our story. And then Val is the one that had the idea. She was like, hold on, we got to have her on the podcast. So why was
So
that?
wait a minute. You are just traveling around and you have a YouTube channel? Okay, I need you.
So for everyone who's because I'm not in the loop, they were leaving me wondering.
Yes.
What did you tell them that they're so excited about? I'm so curious.
I don't know. I don't remember what I said. I try not to tell people the whole thing because it gets really overwhelming. It's like a long story. But I know, but now I get the opportunity to tell the whole story. But I think I maybe just mentioned probably rejection therapy. I don't know if I did that.
No. Maybe I started with. I don't remember that.
Maybe I started with, you were like, where do you live? And I was like, well, I'm kind of in Orlando, but I've been on the road for about a year. And you were like, what do you mean?
That was
Yeah.
the hood. You know?
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay.
That's the Tinder bio.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one line.
Literally. So since we didn't have like a lot to get into what our shoot was all about, because we were like, well, great free, kind of cool, but 20 minutes, that's it. But we do cool stuff.
Yeah.
We are this and that, blah, blah, blah. We had a little chat, and then you said that, but then we were so interested in knowing, how do you make your mind to be in a row for a year? And we're super into. So I guess first question would be like, what brought you there? How do you start your own journey on?
Well, first, like, what do you like? What in like 3 sentences? Like, what do you do, and then how do you get started, and why you do it?
Can I explain what the project is?
Yes.
Because that normally kind of helps describe it a little bit. And then my story to starting the project is separate. But I saw a TED Talk years ago about this guy, or from this guy named Ji Zhang, I believe is how you pronounce it. I might be getting it wrong, so I'm sorry. But he did this thing called 100 Days of Rejection. And basically for 100 days, his goal was to get rejected once a day. So he did things like trying to speak on a Costco intercom, or asking for a burger refill at like a burger joint instead of like a soda refill. And he like just recorded it on his phone, no edits, nothing. And he ended up basically just doing this TED Talk and building a whole business about the premise of rejection therapy, about how you can desensitize yourself to rejection if you kind of put yourself out there and you seek rejection enough. And I always thought this idea was so incredible. And yeah, was just really fascinated by this idea of desensitizing yourself to rejection. And I ended up reading a book called Go for No, which is a sales like marketing book. And I'm not in sales. I'm not in marketing whatsoever, but it kind of had this similar principle of when you go for the no instead of going for the yes, you get farther in life. And so I came up with this idea where the project is called 23 Days of Rejection for the year 2023. And so January 2023, I started driving across the country. I went to 23 cities. And the idea was, I started in Orlando, Florida. This is where I grew up. I grew up in Winter Park. My parents still live here. And I would drive all the way to Los Angeles, California. And I would stop in 23 cities. And every city would have a different specific rejection challenge that was based on that specific city.
Wow.
So trying to ride a float in a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans, or trying to try on an astronaut suit in NASA at the NASA in Houston, or
So quick question. So is
Yeah.
your goal, once you get the no, to stop or push until you see if you can get past that?
Yes. So to try to grow in my desensitivity journey, I decided that every city I'd have to get rejected once more than the city before, or get a yes. So 1 rejection in city 1, 2 rejections in city 2, all the way up to 23 rejections in city 23. But if I got a yes, then I can stop, and also I get to do the thing.
Yeah.
So I tried to ask, especially once I started getting yeses almost immediately, not on day 1, but day 2 and day 3. And I started realizing day 5, actually, in Nashville. I lived in Nashville before when I was 20. And I have been writing music since I was in 4th grade, like as a songwriter.
Keeps getting better.
And
We're
when-
gonna go on for 3 hours today, guys.
Guys, new documentary.
Yeah, everything.
Oh my gosh, what are we doing? And so, yeah, in Nashville, I went there to see if I wanted to pursue a singing songwriting career. But yet I was too nervous. I was too insecure about my skills to ever ask to play somewhere. And so when I went back and I was doing this rejection journey, and this was 7 years later, I was 27 when I started this. I was like, well, let me see if I can play in a bar on Broadway Street, which is like the famous street in Nashville where all the bars are. And I was like, because then I'll at least find out, like, if I'll be able, like the thing that I never asked. And basically I had the most pleasant conversation with the first guy at the bar, who was like, we're contractually obligated. And that's the thing, is that I go into a lot of these videos having done no research. So I don't know how a lot of it would work.
I love that.
Which
I think it's more real.
So is each city a video?
each city has a separate video, yes.
Wow.
But then I ended up getting the second person that I talked to said yes, and I got to play a song on Broadway.
Oh, that's so cool.
And for me,
amazing.
that was like a huge dream come true. And I started realizing, like, that was the day that I was like, oh, I could really ask for anything. Like, I could ask the biggest possible things.
It started getting.
And so I started asking from then on.
Because you were getting too many yeses, right? Every place that you.
Well, yeah. And then I was
you're
like,
hold on.
and the goal ultimately is to do something that I think I'd get rejected by, which is why I'm asking it, because it would be so, like, to me, it would be so crazy to get a yes. But yeah, so I just tried to ask things that were really important to me, that would be really, that I, would obviously assume that people would say no to. And then I still found that because I was having to get 11 rejections some days, or 13 or 17, that really it's not as impossible as you think it is.
So you're back in Orlando. So you did all of it.
Yeah.
So do you want to go over a little bit of the?
Oh, yeah, I can talk about each, just like what they were.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Each city or each question,
Mhm.
the main ones, right? Because I'm super interested in that.
yeah, so in Orlando, I decided I wanted to do something with Disney. So I asked a stranger to buy me a ticket to Disney, which was terrifying, because I tried not to do. I tried not to ask questions where I was asking for money or for free things, because that wasn't the purpose of the project. But I ended up doing that, and it is so funny to look back on that day, because I was so terrified and nauseous, and I'm really proud of how far I came, because I think that I could do that pretty easily now, to just walk up to someone and be like, will you buy me a ticket to Disney, without it being shaken to my core as I did.
So how many questions did
the
it
first
take
time.
for you to get a yes?
So I didn't get a yes on that one.
Okay.
I got one no, and all I needed was one no, and I could go to the next city.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But the guy that I asked was so funny. He goes, I said, hey, would you, and I went to Magic Kingdom. I took the tram, I went all the way to the entrance. And I asked some guy who's sitting on a bench with a friend, and he was like, oh, that's going to be hard. Like, that's going to be hard to find. But I really thought that he would, like, my fear with rejection is that somebody is going to hear me ask this out of the box question and just hate me. You know, like, I'm such a people pleaser that I really thought that that would be the thing that I'd have to get over. But he was so kind and so like open to the idea, and gave me suggestions of like, oh, you should ask like an older couple, maybe they'll let you in. And so that also kind of shifted something chemically in my brain of like, oh, maybe if I keep asking out of the box questions, I'll start to realize that this is more normal, this kind of reaction. And that's what I ended up finding. But day 2 was in Gainesville, and I stopped there because my sister lives there with her husband. Gainesville, Florida. I actually went to Florida State, so it's funny that I stopped in UF. But she told me, my sister, when I pulled up, that they had just opened up an $85 million training facility for their football team. And she is a huge football fan, and she was like, I think it would be really cool if you could try to get a tour of it, because I don't think that it's possible for people to just walk up and do that. And I talked to these 2 guys in a Chipotle after I did it, because I ended up just kind of like sneaking in and asking this random guy who was there on a Sunday that I think was like a recruiter, and he was like, sure.
And you got a tour.
And I got a tour.
And you got that on video.
And I got that on video. The whole tour is on a video. And I went to, but it was so easy. Like, I was like, whoa, how is that possible? And so I went to Chipotle after, and I was talking to these 2 guys to see if it was just like an easy thing to do. And I didn't tell them that I had already done the tour. That I had like a personalized tour. And they were like, oh yeah, you can't do that. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I did do something hard.
You're like, there's no way.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. I wish I got them on video camera saying that. The 3rd one, I went to Savannah, Georgia, because I've never been to Savannah, and I had lived in Atlanta, Georgia for a while. So I had heard amazing things about Savannah. And I asked a stranger to go on a ghost tour with me. The 4th one, I filmed in Atlanta, Georgia. And I found out that, I didn't know this, but the aquarium there is the largest aquarium in America.
Atlanta, right? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the world.
Maybe the world.
Yeah.
It's pretty big, yeah.
It's a big aquarium. And so I asked if I could swim with the sharks there for free. I originally asked if I could swim with the sharks there, but apparently you can do that. So I had to pivot on the spot. The 5th one was asking bars if I could play in Nashville. The 6th one.
That one you got it.
That one I got. No.
Okay.
The 6th one, I went to Birmingham, and I asked, they have this weird fire statue in Birmingham. So I've always wanted to slide down a fire pole, and I was like, let me just do that in Birmingham. So I asked fire stations to slide down their fire pole. City 7 was Jackson, Mississippi, and I asked to plant a flower in a stranger's backyard, which was just kind of random. This was actually before I decided to do more city-centric stories. So that's, honestly, I think that's the only random one that I did, was just asking to plant a flower in someone's backyard. The 8th city that I went to was New Orleans. I asked to ride a float in a Mardi Gras parade. So I went right before they were taking off for the parade, and I like found where they were starting, and then I just went to each float. And that was maybe one of the scarier things that I've done in my life. The 9th.
Did it work or no?
No.
Oh.
Okay, if there's like a yes in the middle of that and it's a good one, you can tell us.
Well, I don't want to ruin it too. Of like, you guys got to watch the video.
Yeah, I know. So that's also in my head. I'm like, I want you guys to go and watch the videos.
I think it's an amazing premise so far. Can you tell them your YouTube channel?
Yes, yeah. My YouTube channel is my name, Meredith Mansfield. Okay. All of the videos on there are basically from the Rejection series, outside of the first 2 or 3 from like a year ago. But any of the ones that you see on there.
So you recently you just came back from doing that.
Yes, yeah.
So how long did that whole process take?
It took me a lot longer than I thought, but mostly it was because I am a one-man team. So I was filming everything, I was in everything, and then I was editing everything. And I started the first week of January. I think it was January 8th. And then I finished filming August 11th.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a long time.
Was August 11th when you were in LA or when you were finally back?
August 11th was when I finished filming in LA.
LA. And then you had to drive all the way back.
Yes. Yeah.
You one-man team, you're yourself in your car. Did you sleep in your car or did you sleep in hotels?
I was operating under a very limited budget. I did not have any sort of income coming in. I had saved up a little bit of money that I thought would last me about 3 months. And I had some major car issues in Texas. Ooh. So most of the extension of the project also was just me trying to figure out how to financially keep going, because I didn't have any financial fuel to get me to LA.
At that point, did you already have a YouTube following that you could get something from? Or
no.
Zero?
Yeah, I was at about 300 or 400 subscribers in Texas. And I'm still not monetized, actually.
Oh, you're not?
I'm not monetized yet. Yeah, so.
There's also that.
Subscribe.
Yeah,
give
for sure.
likes, share, guys.
For sure.
Or, don't. I've been rejected a lot this year.
There you go.
Love it, yeah.
Actually, I would say go.
Yeah. But I mostly couch hopped. So that was another really cool experience, is that not only I'd never really been farther west than New Orleans, outside of one trip to California that I did that was very contained. So it was a really cool experience of getting to see America, but in a very grounded sense, where I was staying with people that lived in those cities. Yeah. So
people you knew or people you asked when you were there?
Most of them were people. So from Florida to Louisiana, I mostly knew people in all of those cities. And then from Texas on, I didn't know anybody. And so it was usually friends of friends. So there was this one family I stayed with in San Antonio, Texas, that I got connected with them because my mom knows a lot of people, which is very helpful. So she sent out like this email blast and was like, hey, my daughter's coming to these cities. Like, if you know of anybody who would be willing to host a weary traveler, like, let us know. And she kind of like told, shout out to my mom, but there was somebody from my mom's, it's very cute. There was somebody from my mom's work who knew a family in San Antonio. So not even somebody my mom knew. And I ended up, the mom that I stayed with, her name's Linda. Shout out to Linda, just doing a lot of shout outs. I owe a lot of people thanks. She actually started watching my YouTube videos. And so before we met, and I ended up staying with them for a couple of weeks actually. And they just kind of adopted me as they have sons my age. And so they just kind of like adopted me into their family. And that's so rare and unusual. And most of the time I was staying like a day or two at people's houses. But yeah, mostly it was, I only stayed 1 or 2 nights with complete strangers. And one of those nights was in Austin, Texas. I had a really, really hard time finding places to stay in Austin, Texas. And it was from a Facebook group and I didn't sleep at all. I was so anxious that I was just gonna like get murdered in the middle of the night that I was like, I can't ever do that again. And I never stayed with somebody that I didn't have some sort of connection to.
Yeah, it's scary for sure.
After that. But I cannot believe that I basically survived for 10 months just on my friends or people I had connections with. Yeah.
I'm
And
taking so many, you know, ideas from just the word rejection and how hard it is, how in front of your face, how cruel it sounds, and like all the opposite of your experience, how it be like actually look like, is kind of telling me that rejection exists first of all in our minds, like before even you're rejected ever. You're afraid of rejection more than you're actually gonna be rejected, and that is something that I right now I cannot believe how, you know, you think, okay, let's get in this journey, let's get rejected, no worries, ego off, whatever, and then a lot of people show up to support, followers. That's amazing. That what you did is literally proven. Well, I guess it comes from that tech talk that I have not watched and I will have to check out.
We'll have to check it out.
But that sense of, you know, like maybe it's true, you know, you have to ask. And honestly, when I met you at the parking lot, I already caught your good energy kind of thing.
We talked about that.
Yeah, it's like
Right away we talked about it.
Yeah, so it's like I'm not afraid to invite her to talk in the camera. First of all, she knows how to be on camera. Second of all, she gives me that energy. So
we always had a longer connection with everybody that's been here. This is the first time that, and it's funny, she has so many experiences with strangers, and here we are. We're also strangers in that sense, because we met in that parking lot, and Val's like, I feel a great energy with her. Like we share.
Wow.
I think this is the first guest that I don't know extensive research about. Usually they don't know, and I'm the one like, okay, this person is this, this.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, thank you for saying that. First off, wow.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, that must be your energy that opens the doors for you, you know, and that is something that we kind of discussed a lot, and who we really are and how we relate to each other, and being authentic, being not only original but taking that yourself out there, I think is what really takes you places. So shout outs to you. That is crazy. I'm loving it.
Super important.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's wild because like I really relate with what you were saying in that TED Talk. Who was the person that said the TED Talk?
I think so. The way that you spell it is JIA and then JIANG, and I think it's Zhejiang. Yeah.
I'm all for pronouncing, so I know I'm not gonna get it right.
But like, try it. We want to see you try. G.I. Jung. That's hot.
We can put a clip up here of him. Shout out to him.
Just put his face like on the rest of the podcast is. But it's amazing how like, so that topic of like the fear of rejection, kind of you're saying, it's all in your mind. And even for like me, like a little bit of my background, like my family came when I was like really young. So I had a huge fear of talking to strangers because my parents would talk to strangers and I didn't even know English. So I was like, how am I supposed to connect? And then slowly learn English, but then that fear of rejection. Oh, I can't talk to this person. They're going to say no. Like you're in school, like, oh, this person seems quite cool. I can't talk to this person. Then you go to or college and you're like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. And it's all in your mind. And it's like, you know how I told them a couple months ago, it's like, I feel like from all these experiences of me having to put myself out there, like we're all entrepreneurs. Once you're an entrepreneur, you have to face the fact that people are going to say no to you. You're going to be rejected. You're not going to get every single job. You're not going to be a billionaire the moment you step out and be like, guys, look what I can do. And it's that step in the process of like, wow, like look how many people said no to me and I'm still alive. And sometimes you're happier at the end than you are before you were afraid of all these things. So it's that whole thing of like, look at all these things that you can pass if you pass that mental barrier. And like you said, like now you're not afraid to ask for someone for a free Disney pass. You're not afraid to do that. Like where can you be? And you could just ask the wildest thing and then you can have the best story of your life from a random stranger. Like you said, like all these people provide you their home. And most people would never experience that ever. Because they're not even willing to go outside of their own head or their own friend group.
I think that words have a lot of content more than what letters together sounds like. Rejection, again, is a very negative word. You know, rejection, you don't want that. But I read the other day that consider rejection as redirection. And I feel like that goes really next to being a creative. So knowing that you're not going to get it right at first or a second try or even the third one, you got to keep going and then face that, mental barrier that we just said. But also, taking on a journey like you did, being a one person crew is crazy, like we all know that even for us to do this, it takes a lot of time, and we have to, between three of us, pull our hair and be like, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? And you by yourself. But that might be something related to your background. You went to the U.S. for what major?
So I went to Florida State, and I went there actually for international affairs. Technically, I have like a really wild story from basically 18 to now. But I started school at Ole Miss, and I was in their international studies program. Then I realized that Mississippi was not the place for me. I didn't really have the connections that I was really excited about there. And it's not that I don't think that people can have that at Ole Miss. For some reason, it just wasn't something that I had. And I think it was because I wasn't meant to be there. And so that's when I dropped out of school and I moved to Nashville, which is a part of my story. And then when I realized that I didn't want to pursue a singing songwriting career, I was more interested in film. And also, it's also like monetizing your creativity.
Yeah.
I realized that I had some friends in Nashville that were writing one song a day and that are now doing really well for themselves, 7 years later. And I realized that when I did that, my songs didn't mean anything or they weren't good. And I realized that I'm going to songwrite forever, like until I die. That's my therapy, but it's not something that I want to monetize and rely on financially because I think it will take my joy out of it.
100%, yeah.
And I realized that I was definitely felt like I was more built for filmmaking, of like, I love the intensity of film. I love the collaboration of the set experience, all of that. And I didn't really have any experience with it so far, but I just like knew it in my bones. So I transferred to Florida State. I did junior and senior year there. I got an international affairs major and started studying their documentary sports media program, while also applying to a master's degree in their film school, which is an amazing film school. They have like a top 15 in the nation. It's highly recommend. I think it deserves to be top 5. But I ended up getting into that program and did that for 2 years. And I was a directing specialist. And so I got to write and direct 3 short films while I was there, as well as learn how to be every other position on set because they ran themselves like a production company. I think it's so helpful as a filmmaker to know how to do everything because I think it's really important to know how to communicate 100%. With the DP and how to communicate with the production designer. And until you are those roles, you don't really know how best to empathize or best to communicate.
Yeah.
I got to production design. I got to learn to key grip and gaff and do all of those things. And doing all of those things also helps you figure out what you like to do and what kind of fills your cup more. And I think that you can be really good at something, but you're not as excited about it. Yeah. And I think by the time I graduated, I was like, well, I really like ADing, I really like producing, and I really like writing and directing. And then I moved to Atlanta and started working in the film industry there and seeing how everything works on a larger scale. I was like, okay, well, I think I wouldn't be as creatively fulfilled as an AD because even though I love organizing and I love the intensity of the AD position, I wouldn't be able to write or direct or call the creative shots in the way that I really want to. And then with producing, I realized that I just love being on set too much. Realized that writing and directing was really what I was interested in. And also it's so intimidating because when you are working on those large sets, it's not really a place where you can tell people that you want to write and direct.
Yeah.
Because nobody takes you seriously.
And then they see you in a role and they're just like, oh, that's the grip.
That's the PA. That's the girl who gets the Diet Coke. And I think I struggled with that a lot in the film industry of, I was in the office side of things for a little bit. And I remember, so I was an office production assistant. That was one of the last roles that I had in the film industry before I left Atlanta and started this trip. But I remember I was just like ordering people lunch and, which I don't want to say just ordering people lunch, that is important, but I remember I was stocking the refrigerator at one point, and this guy in the art department comes up to me and he was like, hey, by the way, like, it's like really important to have Diet Coke in this refrigerator at all times. And I just remember being like, man, he's like looking down on me for like not having his Diet Coke in the refrigerator. And when you have so much creativity like boiling in you and like you know what your potential is and you're not in an environment for you to be known as that, like it's just so refreshing to be able to meet people and to be like, yeah, I'm a YouTuber, like I did this thing, instead of meeting people who are like, oh, you're the girl that gets me Diet Coke. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it is a whole different type of.
What you're saying is huge. You know, like I don't know if you realize it, but that's something that we talk about here a lot. I'm sure that's one of the conclusions you got to after being in the industry. So yeah, for sure, you know how big of a deal this is. But that's something we discuss here a lot. It's like, how much do you want to be on that bigger set and just be doing something that, again, all of these roles are important. Yeah. Right? When you're starving on a set, crafty is like the main thing you want. Right now, you just want food. That's it. Yeah. And after you eat, oh, yeah, literally, that's your best friend. Like that slice of pizza or whatever it is. Yeah. Hopefully it's better. Hopefully it's not pizza. Hopefully it's a little healthier, but hopefully it's Diet Coke. But also, there better be Diet Coke here.
Yeah. Whose job is that? Out. Is that my job?
I will walk out right now.
Yeah, if there's no Diet Coke here. But I think that's something we talk about a lot. It's like him being on those smaller sets and having that bigger role. Right? Yeah. So being on the set that we're going to be with VALHI, she's going to be directing a documentary. EMMANUEL being a DP when I'm directing, like we did a short film recently, really cool thriller film where I was co-directing with Brooke. Yeah. Amazing experience. Co-directing to me was also a huge experience. Huge experience. Yeah. And so that was really nice. Versus having that smaller role on a bigger set, right? Where did you find a conclusion with all of that?
Yeah,
do you have...
I've got some advice.
Cool. Yeah, no, go.
Yes. Yeah. Here. Well, I think whenever I talk to people who are in the film industry, I think, you know, there's a lot that I learned. I was only there for 2 years, so I still have so much more to learn. I know that I'm like a baby creative, but I think it's really important. Oh my gosh, I have so much that I could say on this. I think it depends on a lot of what you want to do. So this advice is specifically for writer-directors, and this is what I learned on sets. So what I would try to do is I would talk to as many people in all of the positions as possible, and I would gauge like, okay, are you happy in your position? Like, what are you wanting to be? Like, what are you passionate about? And then on the rare occasions that I would get at the right moment, at the right time with a director on set, and I would kind of gauge like, okay, like, can I talk, you know, am I in a natural enough position where I can get advice from this person? And I was able to talk to one director in particular, who it was just, the advice that I kept getting from writer-directors was, if you want to write and direct, you have to write and direct. That's the advice. And I was like, okay, cool. But I'm a PA right now, and I'm working 14 to 15 hour days, and I'm making like $11 to $14 an hour, I think, was like max what we were making. Plus sometimes you get like overtime if you go over 8 or 10 hours. I forget what it is. But I don't have the time to write and direct. I don't have the money to take off to be able to pay for my own stuff. So how do I do that? And what I feel like is kind of the best way to set yourself up to pursue writing and directing. And again, I'm available to be wrong, but having the connections that I now have in the film industry is really important. Like having worked on some of the larger sets that filmed in Atlanta, I worked on, which is, I think, one of the highest budgeted films in movie history. And which also is like one of the highest budgeted TV shows ever. Having worked on such amazing sets, I know people now in those roles, like the Duffer Brothers assistant or the script supervisor or like a story exec in Marvel, who those connections are really important to have, but you have to have something to be able to use those connections.
Yeah.
And I think that you need almost like an equal amount of like, okay, well, let me spend a couple of years working in the film industry, but I also at the same time have to then go and make things so that I can use those connections. And I think that's where what I see a lot of people do in the film industry is they'll have dreams of being a writer and director, but they never make anything. So they haven't even made their first short film, or they want to do one thing, but then they get a job in crafty, or they get a job as a grip, and now they're dependent on that money. And every time that the person above them asks, hey, will you come on this show? Will you come on this show? They keep saying yes instead of saying no. And I think that the no's you say in life are so important of like,
there we go.
Yeah, being on the other side. And I've definitely I've come on some hard times by saying no to some projects that I knew wasn't going to serve me in my future. And it's really hard because you think that you're going to burn that connection, and sometimes you do. But at the end of the day, I think as specifically as a writer director, the most important thing that you can do is make as much as you can. And I think that's the hard part, is figuring out how to do that financially.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, college, you're having fun in college. The next step of like, okay, I have this huge passion for this. And you realize, okay, how can I eat? How can I pay my bills? Rent's going up. This is going up.
Yeah.
And then you start getting, a lot of people get disillusioned. I have a lot of friends that started with an amazing career, amazing degree, and then they're like, oh, I'll just work here. This pays my bills. I'm comfortable with this.
And I think that was one of the sadder things for me, is I remember talking with this art director who, to me, when I met him, I was like, this is the coolest guy ever. He had done pre-production on, which is my favorite movie ever. And he was an art director on. For that role, that job, I was working in transportation. So I was working with all the truck drivers. And part of my job was helping everyone from LA do maintenance on their rental cars, which is so funny. But they had rental cars for like a year, and they like needed their oil changed, and they needed to switch cars. So there was one day that this guy who was an art director was like, I need to switch out my car. Do you want to come to the airport? Which, like, he didn't need help doing that. So I thought it was funny that he asked me to go with him, but I was like, you got it. And so I just like was driving this guy to the airport to switch out his rental car. And then we drove back to we were shooting out of Tyler Perry Studios at the time. And I was just asking him about his life, and he was kind of asking me a little bit about mine. And when he found out that I wanted to be writer director, he was like, oh, I wanted to be that at one point. And then I kind of gave up, and I didn't, keep making things. And that kind of story just, it turns the knife in me, because I just, I just want everybody not to give up on the thing that they really want to do, but you have to make a lot of sacrifices along the way to do it.
Yeah. I think something Val said that when we're talking a little bit about rejection, it's like a lot of no's are redirections. And it's scary because it's like
So
when I first started, I was like, I want to be a feature film DP. I want to create all these things. But then you live here in Orlando, and it's okay. What can I grasp? And everything starts changing.
Yeah.
So it's something like he wanted to be a writer and director. Now he's what was he again? He was a art director.
Yeah.
Still an amazing job.
Yeah, like I thought he was living the life, you know?
But then you see what
Exactly.
he started and then what he wanted, and then it's
And I think that a lot of us have this idea while we're young and pursuing a dream, really based on other people's life. And the problem with that is just like looking at the screen. You see, whoa, that's so cool. Wow, what if I was that person? But you don't know the person. You don't know what the life looks like. You don't even know if they're enjoying
They're
it.
happy. Yeah.
it's like, oh, they're directed, but how long did it take for them to even be a director? How many years of unpaid or struggle did they take? Or even if you wanted to be in that position, how much backup do you have? Either your family knowing people, the money you have to go to schools, the money
What
you have
school
to...
they went to, all of that.
It's insane.
This kind of reminds me of why I pivoted to YouTube.
Yeah, so that's the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
perfect.
the next
I don't
step.
know if you're like
Perfect
ready.
transition.
Is there like some kind of like script here going on? Because that was my next thing.
Yeah.
Well, one is a statement, the other is a question. My statement is just that as someone that's loves directing, right? And that's my main thing. Writer directors too, which is like what you were saying. I think it's like a different thing when I am able to work as both on a project versus when I'm directing something that someone else wrote. I've had good and bad experiences in both. It depends. But
Interesting.
I'm not gonna go into detail of the bad experiences. But what I'm trying to say with it is that I think YouTube is one of the platforms nowadays that I don't know if it's like you were saying earlier, maybe not seen as the best thing by most people in the industry, but it's a huge platform that's pretty recent if you think about it. It's got like, I don't know, definitely less than 20 years. I think it's like from 2000.
Yeah, I think it's like 15.
That's like when it
16
started getting
years,
bigger,
maybe?
really. Yeah.
In 2006 it started,
So if you think
2005 or
about
6.
that,
Okay,
so
so
let's
almost
say in the
20
last 10 years or maybe even less, that's when it started really growing as a platform. But it's a place right now for writer-directors to grow a lot. Their audiences get millions of people watching the content that they make. So there's also that. If you're not in the big screen necessarily, but you're in the small screen or you're even on a television screen for people watching YouTube, is that also making you happy and making millions of people watch your content? And then how can that, and that's like really the question, maybe fuel your career in the film industry later on?
Yeah. Okay. Tell me the first question again.
I think they're related. It's mostly like, first of all, the importance of building up presence on social media, but especially on YouTube, and then getting, all that people watching you, and then how can that transfer over into the film industry?
Yeah. So, I'll answer this in a long way, if that's okay.
Perfect. That's what we're looking for.
Okay, great. So one of the last projects that I worked on was and so I literally fell on the floor when I found out that I got that job. But as I worked on it for about 6 months, and by the end of my time working on it, I realized that I just saw a lot of like greed in the film industry, and especially on bigger sets. Like workers would like lie about their times to get more money, but they're already making like $40 an hour. And I saw like a lot of wasted money and a lot of like not recycling. Like there's just so much waste that happens. Like the planet is kind of getting destroyed more. And I just kind of started being a little bit more weary of the idea of these huge shoots. And at the same time, there was this YouTube channel that I'd been watching for about 5 years, and they're called Yes Theory, and their whole motto is seeking discomfort and going outside of your comfort zone. You know, every person's a stranger you haven't met yet. So they do crazy videos like asking strangers to go skydiving, or you know, swapping lives with a stranger across the world. It's very entertaining, very fun things, and it's these 3 guys that do it. One's Egyptian, one's Swedish, and one's like American and French. And I've been watching them for a lot of years, and they have this podcast where they ended up mentioning that they were looking for a female adventure partner. And they kind of said it at the end of the podcast, and they said, you know, we're just going to put that out there. But they didn't have like an application for it or anything. And so I was near like my last month on this movie, and I ended up being like, I'm gonna make a YouTube video. And my first YouTube video on my channel is this application video that I made. And I scripted it. I kind of made it like a narrative short form, or like a, not short form. I made it like a narrative movie of me listening to this podcast and running to this guy who plays my roommate, who I'm like, Yes Theory is looking for me. And it's this whole saga. But it took me about 3 months to make. I uploaded it to YouTube. I have a ton of my friends DM them the same day that I post it. And within 2 hours of it being online, the main guy from Yes Theory, they had like 8 million subscribers at the time, DM'd me and was like, we can't wait to meet you. Like, we're going to fly you out to Los Angeles.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so within a month, I know, and these are like my heroes. Like, never in my life would I have thought that I'd ever get to meet them. It was amazing. So that was my first time in California. They flew me out. We filmed an episode together. We filmed, and that has like 5 million views. And
I was so scared that this story wasn't gonna end well. I don't know why. Because you talked about rejection for so long and being okay with it.
I know.
And I was like,
she didn't get it. She got it.
You did 3 months?
She got it.
Oh my God, I'm so
Amazing.
happy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I am okay with rejection, but I love that it ended with a yes too.
Thank you. And so we went to this wolf sanctuary, and we lived at a wolf sanctuary for a couple of days. The video's phenomenal. It's amazing. And I just remember we were in the mountains of California, and one of the guys was standing beside me, who I just like couldn't even believe I was in the same room with him. And well, technically we were on a mountain, so I couldn't believe I was on a mountain with him. There were these 2 wolves off leash running around, and the sun was setting. And that was the moment that I was like, why am I not doing this? Like, why? Because the film industry also has this thing where there's no PTO. There's like, if you turn down a job because you're trying to travel or do something, you probably are going to burn that connection and not be asked back.
Yeah.
And so everyone's afraid to like live their life in the film industry. Like, everyone's overworked. There's tragically like horrible stories of people working themselves basically to death. And and I kind of was like, well, what's inspiring me as a writer director, what kind of movies that I want to make is I want to inspire people to shut their laptop or to get out of the movie theater and to like live a full, wholehearted life. That's what I want to make films about. And which is kind of counterintuitive because like watching TV and watching films is like what is sucking people out. But I kind of wanted to be in that medium and inspire people to live extraordinary, moments. And so I was doing that, but I was getting to live in it, and I was getting to have this really extraordinary moment with, the wolves and with, the people from this YouTube channel. And I was like, this is the cheat code. Mm-hmm. This is like how I can live a really adventurous, kind of life that's really fulfilling to me. And I've always been kind of a free spirit, but also tie in, a social impact, full message, which, their whole brand is like, socially impactful stuff about seeking discomfort and filmmaking. And you get to tie that all together. And that was kind of the moment that inspired me to make a YouTube channel. And for me, it took me about 10 months until I came up with this idea. So I was still working in the film industry at the time. I was still kind of trying to figure out how I was going to do this. Do I leave Atlanta? Kind of all of those logistical questions. But I also was worried that people would think I was insane to leave the film industry. And YouTube is kind of this, you can do really poor filmmaking on it and get a lot of views, you know, like, and I'm so much, you know, on film school, we shot on red cameras. We did very by the book, very Hollywood stuff. And I was really afraid to be seen as a lesser creative when I started on my YouTube channel. But the cool thing is even with that first video of me applying to work for this YouTube channel, I made a connection. I made a couple of connections with people that I never would have made working on film sets, who saw me as a creative, whereas the connections that I made on film sets, those people see me as transportation girl or Diet Coke girl. They're not seeing me as, oh, you made this thing and now we know each other.
Exactly.
So
that's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. And for you, that's so fulfilling compared to the like what you're getting now as a YouTuber and getting a lot of people watching you in that first video, 5 million people versus what you were getting, you know, for being on set, bringing Diet Coke. Okay, maybe you were part of that big production, but you weren't being seen as that, as a creative person that you are, right? But we can tell you are just by talking to you. So there's so much.
And it's scary too, like you said, like the presence of like, oh, you're in the industry. That's what all of us want. In college. That's like what we think is the dream. Being in the industry. Wow. Being on
whatever
set,
I do, whatever I have to do, I'll do it. But I'll be in the industry.
It's like
you know what I mean?
like for example, like I worked at Disney once and I did the orientation and like people were crying watching the thing and I'm like, I like Disney, I don't like it that much. And I'm like, well, why are you crying? Like what is this? I would be the same way if like I got to any set with any famous director. I'd be like, oh my God, this is what I wish for. But then you don't see what you're sacrificing. You don't see working 14 hours and getting paid $10 an hour. You don't see yourself just running around only filling other people's orders.
And this actually, I've thought about this a lot because I think that in life, and maybe it's what we've been indoctrinated with, I'm curious if you guys feel the same, but I feel like at different times in my life, I've been told like, oh, if I just have this one thing, then I'll unlock infinite happiness. When I was little, I thought that would be like, oh, once I get married, unlimited happiness. Or I remember when I was like, oh, if I got into the film school at Florida State because I just, you know, think it's the best film school ever, then I'll just unlock infinite happiness for the next 2 years. Everything will be great. And I was the most, I'm not married. I should have said that. Never got married, but maybe one day in the future. But for the film school, that was the most depressed I've ever been in my life. I was miserable. And there were a lot of factors that went into that. But I think once I got into the film world, I thought, oh, if I got on set, it was like the dream set for me. Like I love that TV show. And once I had that opportunity and I got on as like the lowest position I possibly could, I thought that I would just unlock that, like, oh my gosh, I'm on the set, like I'm getting to see it. And my position was in the COVID department, which like everybody hates the COVID department. You're just there to like make sure people put up their masks. Now I would have like taken out trash, to be honest. But it was just a lot of standing around for 13, 14 hours with no purpose, not creatively like giving anything. And it was just really like it's mentally insane to just stand in a corner for 14 hours and that's your job.
I've been in those jobs before.
I
know those jobs.
It's terrible. And like I learned a lot from just watching everybody set up the lights and things like that. But it was when I was on that set in particular that I was like, oh, the dream isn't to just be on a set. The dream is I want to make things like this. And I think
I love what she said. Val was looking at me and smiling. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God,
And
it just happens to also be what we want to hear because we've been going at different, but I love that. I love that you had the courage to do both.
Yeah, exactly. I guess romanticizing your career as part of pursuing a dream. And I think it's important because it's like kind of the fuel. It's like, oh, this and wish for having someone else like life type of thing.
Yeah.
But personally, I know that you asked if we had kind of the same experience.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe when I just got in film school and I realized that was really cool because that was how I felt. It's like, what? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
People live out of this? This is so cool. All the way to where I actually, because I started studying filmmaking in Venezuela, and then I moved here. And when I moved here, I was nobody. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to pay for school or anything like that. So I had to kind of shut my brain off and be like, whatever, Val. Like, if you make it, you make it. You're already doing a lot for your life, you know? Like, I had that period where I was expecting the worst, you know? Like, well, at least let me learn English first and see if I can actually do something. But then at some point, I don't know what, something turned into my vision again. I guess was getting again into the school move and everything. And I was like, what's really important? And I always have like this saying of one of my biggest legends that is a professor. He gave my first photography class and documentary class that he said, you only want to make the best movie, the best documentary when you go through life. When you live your life, not someone else, not the movie, not the infinitive bio we watch through school to be someone else. It's like one day you're gonna have a crazy good story and you have to be able to tell it. And that's our commitment to this, more than being in LA, living in a dream house or whatever the picture is for each one of us, because like it really varies. But I think it's very fair what you experience, because in my side, I have experienced a lot of rejection. If you look at my email, I have a bunch of thank you, Valerie, for your application, but we don't give a shit. And and it's like I every time I see that, it fuels me. And I go like, I had crazy ideas. I'm like, now it's time to do whatever crazy thing I want. And sometimes I can't even express in the same medium. I want to be somebody at some point. I probably just go ahead and take a picture and modify it my own. Or now I do AI and then start doing crazy things. So I need to take things out of my system sometimes. And when it comes to creativity, that's the way I managed to do it. But I've been standing for 14 hours, kind of balancing what I'm going to do after this 14 hours. I got the money. Now I have time to do this. Maybe I'm going to leave this month low budget, but at least I'm going to do the project I've been dreaming of. So that's kind of like the balance I've been experienced. I never like ignore the voice inside of me that tells me, hey, do this. Oh, you had this idea? Go for it. You know, like I still listen to it. And sometimes I need to pause it for a little bit, maybe take notes, remember that I want to do something, and then deal with life. But maybe I'm not like, you know, I wouldn't try just to get a position somewhere, because every time, I don't know, maybe it's the way I accept rejection, is that I apply, I get the no, and I immediately lose interest. It's like probably before I was daydreaming. I walk in the thing and what I'm gonna eat and what I'm gonna do and how happy my life looked. But after you see the no, it's like, okay,
redirect,
whatever, redirection, let's go. And that's adventurous at some point, and probably disappointing sometimes, because I've been right there. Like I think I was in the first round of interview for Shark Tank in LA. Like, everybody was like, oh, well, you're for sure gonna get it. I'm like, and inside of me, I was like,
I said she was gonna get it.
yeah. And I was like, everybody, Val, forget about it. Go to sleep. You're gonna wake up in LA and do that. And then when I said, like, I received the no, I was like, God, damn it, again. And I'm like, okay, no worries. But now, doing my own project, the hastening thing, and helping business build brands, and I'm pouring out my brain, and it's so cool. Like yesterday, I just had a consulting. That's what I'm doing most likely nowadays. And I just love to throw ideas out there, and people appreciate it, and I appreciate those people for appreciating me, and I think that gives me fuel to do more stuff and just trying until whatever happens, I enjoy, you know? Yeah, that's my personal, but I don't know, what would you say?
Well, I would say that what's very sad about filmmaking is that the way society sees it, or everyone sees it, is like, oh, so you're a filmmaker, so you're a film director. Okay, so are you trying to win the Oscar?
Yeah.
Why is this the only career where, like, if you're say you're a lawyer, you don't have to be in the Supreme Court. If you're going to school for whatever, you don't have to be the president, the next president of the United States. Why is it with film that you can't just be a director because you're directing films, because maybe you have a really big YouTube channel, because maybe you are inspiring a lot of people around you, maybe you're getting millions of views. If I watch my career and the stuff I create now, and I looked at it 5 years ago, I would probably not believe in the stuff that I'm doing right now. It's unbelievable, but like in the best way possible. But at the same time, when is it enough? And sometimes I think about it, it's more of a psychological question than anything else, or philosophical even. But like, even for the guy who was winning the Oscar this year, if next year he goes again and he doesn't win it, is he sad next year because he didn't win it? So at some point, you need to find happiness in what you're doing and in the day-to-day. You know what I mean? I think a big thing for us is we're happy. We're happy on set. I had literally both actors, and it was the coldest night of the year, but like ever that I can remember in Florida. It was freezing when we were on set like a couple weeks ago. I was directing. I had to keep everyone happy. I had to keep everyone excited for that thing. It was already like 3 a.m. We were freezing. The actors literally messaged me after the set. They're like, this was the best experience I've ever had on a set.
Wow.
For me to hear that, because it's what you said. You put a lot of money, you waste a lot of money and time and things, and you hurt the world and the environment and the planet by doing all of that, right? Just to make a movie. And cool, okay, if the movie is great, that's at least you have that. But what about the whole experience that you had on the set? That's also important. There's something to say about that, right? So I think it's also enjoying those wins that we have all throughout our career.
It's the biggest thing. And I think I've told this story to like 3 of the podcast guys, but it's still like a story that like really developed the way I think. And I don't think I can ever go back from that. But it's that one thing of like enjoying the process. And I think that's like that, not just in film, but in life, you just integrate. I remember it was like my first year and a half, I was a videographer, a small little camera, and I got hired to follow this millionaire interview successful Hispanics in Miami. And I kind of hated that, just following this guy blogging around. And I was like, I want to create movies. I don't want to create this guy talking and blogging and stuff like that. But I was like, hey, I'm broke. I think they were paying me like $500 for like the whole weekend. Nothing. It was like 12-hour days.
Crazy.
Nothing for all that. For now, I would be like, what? How dare they?
You got to start somewhere, though.
Right? You got to start somewhere. And we go, and we start interviewing with these people. And then I start seeing a recurring thing that all these guys are saying. All these guys are millionaires. All these guys are successful. They all live in Miami. Some people were like TV stars. Some people had their own mechanic shop. Some people, you know Zumba or what?
Zumba.
The dance exercise. I interviewed the guy who created that. We were in his mansion in Miami. It was insane. But all of them said the exact same thing. They said that if they never got paid for it, they'll still be doing it to the day they die. The richness was the side effect of them enjoying what they were doing every single day. So then that's when everything clicked in my mind. I was like, I need to enjoy what I'm doing every single day of my life. Because who cares what I get in the end? But if I was happy in every single day and I made every single day count, who cares what I get? I could get an Oscar, or I could just be living in a box. But look at all these fucking stories I did. Look at everything I accomplished. Not
just having that mindset. It becomes a side effect. I like the idea of the side effect.
Like that's why I tell people it's like I'm not gonna be rich. I don't care about the richness of it. If I have money, cool, but that's not going to be my lifestyle because that's not the point of me doing all this.
I think that reminds me of like, gosh, I think I got to a point where I decided this project in particular because I was like, I have never made decisions based on view count or subscriber count or anything like that, because for me this was the most personal projects that I could do, and I just wanted to basically choose something that I was like, if I get 0 subscribers, if I make 0 money from this, what will build my character? What's something that I would feel really accomplished personally by doing? What would add so much joy to my life? And it was going on the road, seeing America, meeting all these people, and building my character and like getting rejected a lot, I guess. But sometimes, you know, I'm so tempted to look at people who, I think that's kind of the crisis of our generation, of people who are like, oh, I just want to be famous on TikTok so I don't have to go to work. But then everyone is like, oh, I'm unhappy. Once they get to that point, they're like, I'm unhappy because all I'm doing is making these short, meaningless content. Or you see a lot of YouTubers who start young that then are like, oh, I'm burnt out, or I don't know what to make, or I don't feel like I have a purpose. And I think that it's like a journey that all of us have to go through. But I kind of went into it being like, this is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. And I can't wait for all of the videos to be out. They should be finished by about April, I think. But for me, it's like, I will have, like, these videos are going to be online after I die. And I'm like, the one that I just posted from Denver, Colorado is one of my favorite ones I've ever made. And I spent way too much time editing. But I'm also in the mindset of like, I'm not trying to get famous right now. I'm not trying to just like pump out videos that are less than I want them to be just so that I can get the numbers because I'm, you know, posting and hitting the algorithm more. I want to make something that, like, at the end of the day, I'm so proud of. And that, like, I know that people will be really excited to see.
And people connect with it.
There's like this family that has 5 boys ages 4 to 13, and they're like a second family to me, and they live in Atlanta, and all of their boys love my channel, which is so cute because I don't make content for like little boys that watch like Minecraft streaming stuff. But like I edit based off of, would I want to watch this? Would I be interested in it? So I think that, like, I do have a large female population, but I also have like people in their 50s and 60s who watch it. And those are the people that I'm going to visit this month in Colorado. Like, I know 2 different groups of people that are like parents and stuff. And it's just like, that's what's fulfilling to me, of like having a positive message, getting to travel, get to see the world, getting to film make, which is what I love. And just trying to like inspire people to live a more whole life. Like that's,
I love that. I think just a human need. After all, that is what we are. Taking up all the production and hats and, you know, dreams and stuff, is finding purpose. And we as creators, we experience the burnout often. Hopefully not too often or not too hard. But talking to the psychologist that is part of my documentary, I told her, being very honest, like, I think last year I did too much. By the time I was in September, I was like, I want to sleep. I don't care if I make it or not. At this point, I'm excited. Like, I am exhausted. I can't do anything else. But it just took me those 4 weeks of good sleep and good sleep, mentally, like hygiene, and then
mental hygiene. I like that.
To get back to, wait a minute, let's get back to this and that and that and that and that. You know, like resting to to keep going is essential, but also purpose.
I also got here in October, so that's when we started.
It's also making sure like you yourself is someone you have to take care of.
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget about that. We're like, oh, I can deal with it. I can go like 4 days without eating this,
Which
this,
is
that.
the other side of like, are you happy doing it?
Exactly.
You know, like the director who's on set, are you happy with you know, the time that you get to see your family and the amount of like money that you're making if you're only able to do this, you know, once every while? Or, you know, like even with YouTubers, like to me, now that I've entered the YouTube space, I'm like, okay, I know that you have the numbers, I know that you have the money, but are you happy doing it? And I think that's what I'm trying to figure out for myself is like, what's the equation of like, how many times how many hours am I editing a week, and how many stories do I get to tell? And like at the end of the day, like are you miserable?
Yeah.
But that's why I was saying process is key. Like if you enjoy the process, you're gonna be awake. You could be like 48 hours awake. You're doing what you want to do. You're not gonna feel tired.
Yeah.
Your body's gonna just elevate. It's gonna be like
Exactly.
floating from the excitement of you creating something you always wanted.
When you get to that cloud nine.
Yeah,
like,
cloud
that's
nine.
when you're really
No one can make you mad. You're on set. You're doing
you're
your
creating
thing.
every day.
And
Yes. So going back to what she actually mentioned is that she has a lot of, you know, people that just come with this same symptom of burned out, whether they're physicians or, you know, like engineers or anything. And the common factor of overcoming burnout is purpose. When they don't know what's next, nothing really makes them happy.
I can imagine having like a career where it's just spreadsheets and you're just sitting in a cubicle and just like filling information up. And
it's also like on the other side, it's like you give your parents like all this credit of like a lot of people's parents hate their job, but their purpose was us. It's like they're doing it because they want to elevate your life, and it gives you a reason. It's like they did all this, and you know, like that's why like I treat my parents amazing. Like they did all this, like why would I ever treat them?
And then you show them
less
your
than me?
movies and you're like, what the hell is it?
That's
my parents too.
They fall asleep. They're like, it took me 2 years to tell my parents like I don't want to be an actor. They're like, why don't you want to be in front of the camera? I was like, no, I want to be the.
My parents still ask me.
But it's I think it's like purpose. Like purpose can motivate you, can push you past all the things you don't want to do.
And then sometimes you get, you know, again, being part of, you know, embracing what you came to say, you know, like, okay, I love that you said that you want to invite more people to enjoy the sunny day outside, or maybe the rainy evening, whatever it is, life is outside. I think I was born and raised in a like environment like that. I know that the best of life is being out there, getting dirty, you know, having fun and doing these things. I connect with that with them. They have kind of the same way they grew. We don't get too stuck in what we watch. We really watch for inspiration, for things there and there, but we're not like too really obsessed with it, because I always invite people to explore their life and find a narrative they're interested in. You know, like my documentary is nothing that I'm super interested or researching. It's like, let's talk about cancer. But you know, one thing led to another. I start one project with tattoos, and then this, you know, opened the door to this other one, and then I found myself in a very interesting situation that I feel the need to tell it.
We have a really good movie that we should share with her, Blue Room, that we did together. There's a short film that we worked on together that's pretty much a criticism on that, on like being stuck on like that screen and not going outside, literally. And it's something we shot.
Just sitting there eating tacos and thinking,
Talking about it,
isn't it crazy that people really can play the video game for hours and then being highly medicated and this sounds like a movie.
Anyways, just put like a bunch of ideas together. I have one last question from director to director, and it's so you're getting more into YouTube. Like, on YouTube, I feel like as a creative and as a creator as well, you are the writer, you're the director, you're also the actor. You are
The filmer.
Everything.
producer.
And producer, everything, right?
Logistically, trying to pull everything off is a nightmare.
In a way, it's a little bit of a documentary too, because you're talking about real life. However, you kind of wrote what you're doing in your life. Did you start that challenge thinking about YouTube already or not?
Did I start the 23 days of rejection? Yeah, that was specifically 100%. I wanted to start a YouTube channel.
So my question to you is like, from there, as a director, what are your next steps that you see for yourself in your career? And how do you want to get back into specifically more of filmmaking? Do you want to stay on YouTube? Do you want to be a YouTube filmmaker, director? What are you thinking?
Well, one thing before we go then. You said that when we met that you wanted to direct video music.
Oh, music videos.
That is really, yeah. That is cool. I was like, okay, do it. You know, like that's fun.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that happened last year while I was filming everything is that, and it's also one of the reasons why it took me until August to finish, was I directed my first music video in Los Angeles. It was a friend of mine. Her name's Paige Peterson. Everyone go check her out. We went to the same school, Florida State, and she also was an actress, but she's also a singer. And so she kind of called me up one day and we put together this idea for a more narrative style music video where she wouldn't necessarily be singing, but she would play a character and we would kind of walk through. It's very like Pixar, you know, like no talking stuff. But we wanted to do it at a hot air balloon festival. So one of my favorite parts of directing is pulling the crew together. So when I was in LA, I got, you know, to get into meetings with all these people, trying to find my producer and my DP. And we had an amazing team of just, I think, 5 of us. And we drove up to Sonoma, which is like a 7-hour drive. And we pulled off this amazing video. I'm so proud of everybody. And the cool thing is that the DP that we worked with, Will Sampson, he had been shooting music videos for 15 years. And the only reason that he was willing to work with us, I was really shocked because I am a beginner director, but we both went to Florida State and the strike was happening. So he was like, I'll work for you what the documentary I'm working on is paying for me right now. If you just pay me like a little bit more, I'll do that, which is like a 1/5 of his normal price. And but anyway, so that experience, I'm so proud of how that turned out. And it really reminded me of how much I love writing and directing, because the whole year I'd just been doing my individual journey and it is very isolating, and I love working with a team. And I love just the whole directing and having a vision and it coming to life and getting the shots. And, but as I've been thinking about the next couple of years of like kind of where I see my life panning out, I realized that, one, there are a lot of, people in, the studios like Netflix, Hulu, Warner Brothers, that are trying to make deals with YouTubers now. And the YouTubers are making so much money, having total control over everything that they're making, that they're not offering basically them enough to be able to collaborate. And so you're seeing a lot of YouTubers who are like, I used to think that the dream was to have a show, but now I'm like, oh, I would make less money and have less creative control. And I'm kind of doing what I love the most right now. And I think that that's a really weird kind of dichotomy of like, the YouTubers that I met and became friends with, Yes Theory, they made their own documentary where they wanted to sponsor athletes like Red Bull. So they sponsored this athlete to be the first person to complete an Ironman on Antarctica. And he did it. And they got all of the footage from these guerrilla style filmmakers that have never worked stepped foot on a union set. And they brought it to Netflix, to Hulu, to all these studios to basically be like, hey, do you want us to sell this documentary to you? And they were making a deal with one of them. And every single studio exec was like, how were you able to pull off this, getting this good footage? We've sent crews to Antarctica before. We've never had this quality of footage come back to us. And so you're seeing that like there are people in this space that are doing cooler things than what the studios can do. And I think that's what's really inspiring to me. I think eventually when I look into the future of like being late 30s, 40s, I'd love to own a production company. There's one of my favorite comedian is this guy named Hassan Minhaj, and he started out on YouTube. He's a comedian. Just like I look up to him a lot, and he sacrificed a lot to get to where he is. He like slept on an air mattress for 10 years. So he just like knows what's up. And he started his own production company and wrote and directed a feature that's getting made soon. And I think that would be, for me, ideally where it would go in the future is like kind of live on YouTube. I think that I've enjoyed my freedom, like surprisingly. I've enjoyed my freedom so much, and being able to be like, oh, well, I've always wanted to backpack Europe. I should just do that like now. And I've always wanted to go to South America. I haven't done that yet. And then being able to like combine the living experiences that I want with the social impact, with the filmmaking, and still continue to make those connections. To me, I'm kind of like, I want to do that the next couple of years. And
I know some people in Brazil if you have to.
Okay, great. So it's really terrifying when I realize that of like, oh, I think I might try to continue doing YouTube for the next couple of years, but also, you know, start to here and there, you know, still develop my writing, directing skills of like writing and directing a music video. I really want to pitch to my favorite artist to direct a music video for him. Like that's on my bucket list of like,
I picked that from you, you see.
Do like a mock-up, because you never, now that I'm like in the space of like, I really think anything's possible.
Yeah.
Like that's what I've learned from this trip. The question that I've been asking myself a lot though is like, but what do I want people to say yes to? And now that I'm starting my own YouTube channel, I'm like, oh man, it's less about rejection really, because it's just about creating and going and doing.
But that's pretty amazing. That kind of barrier that you broke through, to be able to say it's less about the rejection, it's more about what question am I going to ask? Because I know eventually I'll get that yes, or I'll get that to happen. I can pretty much I can make anything happen. What do I want to really happen? That's amazing.
And that's the actual the biggest like challenge actually is to know. But actually, I don't think, I mean, I love philosophy. I really get into there. That's the normal question we, all human beings, ask ourselves. It's like, what's next? And that the least fear you have about the unknown, the better you do, I think. Because, you know, you're willing to do something that will at least give you goosebumps, good feelings, nice smile. And then that's when you know you're in the right spot. And then knowing when to let go things, you know, it's like, okay, maybe, you know, I'm done with the YouTube thing, but I already connected with this many people and brought my own voice to this. Like us, what we doing with the podcast is like, I was not okay with being on camera. I'll be like, let's avoid this. Let's not do the, you know, like, and now I don't really care, you know, like, so for me, until whatever happens with this podcast, it's actually just knowing that we all don't know what to do, you know, but it's okay, you know. We say that, you said that with like another friend that is comedian, and he's so talented, so good. I watched his video, I laughed my ass, and I'm like, wow, you're so cool. But now he's producing and he's doing good as well. And then you feel like, well, when is these two things gonna connect? You never know, but they might, you know, like it's all connected at the end. I feel like, it's like just patience, maybe.
So I have one last question. As a closing statement, what would you say for someone, let's say 10 years ago, they're in school right now, they do want to go in the film industry, but they're seeing all these opportunities of YouTube, you know, social media in the film industry. What would you say to someone that was in your place right before you went to Atlanta, like in 2 to 3 sentences? what would you tell them?
Honestly, like, I think one thing that I've done in life since I graduated high school, which that would have been around the time of this person or my future self, was that I just tried everything that I thought I'd want to do. So I tried being a singer-songwriter, and I'm so thankful I had that opportunity, because otherwise I would have always asked myself, you know, like, well, what if? Mm-hmm. And I lived in Kenya for 3 months. I was like a filmmaker intern, and I tried that, and I tried working in the film industry. And I think that trying every single thing that you could possibly be interested in, seeing what resonates with you the most, and what at the end of the day that you'll be proud of yourself for, I think is ultimately why I was able to say that last year doing this project and finishing this project is the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done in my life. And so, yeah, I wouldn't change anything, but I would say try everything.
I love that.
Try everything, guys.
Try everything, guys.
Try everything except for the bad things.
Yeah.
Don't get
except
into
for drugs.
Yeah.
Would you want to give the people listening to your either social media and your YouTube so they can see your videos?
Yeah. My Instagram account is at Meredith J Mansfield, and TikTok is at 23 Days of Rejection. And then my YouTube channel is Meredith Mansfield. So
check her out.
Check her out, guys.
That's awesome.
Out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we got.
There's 8 more videos coming for the challenge.
Okay.
So
maybe by the time we post this, there will be 7.
Yes. Exactly.
Depending on how long we take to edit.
Yeah.
Got some of the best ones coming up.
Cool.
Perfect.
Awesome. You want to say cut?
Yeah.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Cut.